Hello, everyone. It is Isimemen Joby here, business and career growth strategist and founder of Fulfilled, the best, most transformational career coaching program for Black women and women of color who want to land their dream jobs, skyrocket their salary, and live truly fulfilling, rich lives. I am here with the Nicole Walker, who is one of our incredible clients within Fulfilled. And Nicole is just going to share her journey, her story. I am so excited to have you here, Nicole. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Of course. And I love your lipstick, by the way. I was going to tell you. Very cute. Nicole, let's just kick off with you sharing what you do, your role title, and your total years of work experience. And I would love you to share your entrepreneurial work and your day-to-day work.
Okay, sure. So I'll start with my day-to-day work, right? So my current title is senior analyst, and I work for one of the leading telecommunications company. I think it's Fortune 15, right? And my background is in project management, is in business analysis, data analysis, creating presentations, organizational management, all of that good stuff, logistics, all of that. My background, so I know it's at least 18 plus years, doing project management work, creating presentations, logistics handling, analyzing data, all of those things. Yeah, I think that was the answer to that first part of that question, right? Yeah. So then entrepreneurially, right? So back in 2018, I actually decided to create my brand, which is called Unheard United. And I started that via a podcast. So I'm a podcaster, actually award-winning podcaster, right? And after doing that, I also morphed into being a speaker. So I'm a public speaker. I speak at a lot of the podcasting conferences, different business conferences, women conferences around different topics in business, podcasting, mindset, all of those things, right? And after that, I actually started coaching other aspiring podcasters who wanted to become a podcaster. So it was like really funny that I didn't plan any of this stuff, right? Like I kind of started a podcast and then all of a sudden I became known to a lot of people as the queen of podcasting. So people wanted to know more about that. And then after doing that, I actually started helping a few organizations that are in podcasting, as well as other podcasters get sponsorships for their events, right? So, or their events as well as their podcasts. So I do that, as well as analyzing people's data. So data, around those events and data around their podcasts to create media kits and also go out and get sponsorship. So a lot of different things that kind of morphed themselves.
Yeah. So you're an entrepreneurial person, you're an entrepreneur, and you are a corporate baddie, essentially, yes. Right? You do both. Yes. That is awesome. And we met because you interviewed me for your incredible podcast. Yes. And you started hearing about Fulfilled, and we were talking about Fulfilled. And then you decided to make the transition to join us in Fulfilled. And I would love to know for you, Nicole, what was the challenge for you? What were you experiencing in your life, in your career, that made you say, I need a shift, I need a change, I need some help, because I don't want to go another day like this?
Right. So it was very much just being unfulfilled, feeling undervalued, underappreciated, overworked, right? Like when I heard you talking on the podcast, I'm like, is she talking to me? I feel like she's talking to me, right? And that's, like a quick summary of it, like all of these years of working with very little promotion, not much recognition, very much also noticing the microaggressions, I guess, quote unquote, unconscious biases, because I don't know if they're conscious or unconscious, but, the matter of the fact is that they're there, right? Whereby it's like, oh, I introduce an idea. Oh, no, we can't do that. Then, someone else that doesn't look like me introduces the idea. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's the best idea ever, right? And it's never a recall of the fact that, like I introduced that idea, right? Also often getting overlooked for projects that are in my wheelhouse, so very much doing stuff that is very mundane and kind of draining the life out of me. And it being opportunities to do things that would really spark me, but for whatever reason, I'm never the one picked to do those things. And it's usually people that don't look like me, that are picked to do that. So it's funny because that actually is what led me into, doing my podcast and moving into entrepreneurship, is that I just really felt like not appreciated. And I started to even doubt myself and my capabilities until, I went out on my own and realized like, Nicole, you're still amazing. Right. Yeah. But I think, when you're in a corporate space and people overlook you, or they, discredit you or discredit the scope of the work that you're doing, kind of downplay it because maybe they don't want you to think it's so big, that you can start to believe that about yourself, right? And that's what started to happen with me.
Yeah. Wow. So you're going through all this at work and you decide that you need some support. So you make the decision, we have a conversation, and you come into Fulfilled. Can you talk to us about your journey in the program, from the parts of the program that really impacted you to the wins you began to experience even at work, because you began to change. And funny enough, everything began to change around you because you didn't particularly get a new role.
No.
That's not what really happened with us. We were after another level of clarity and depth and all that. So can you take us through that journey?
Yeah. So, of course, entering into Fulfilled, like, it was scary, right? Like, it's not like it's, a penny, right? It's a decent chunk of change, right? So that in itself was scary. But I will say that the experience has been life-changing, right? And it was everything from that mindset, of changing my mindset of how I looked at things and actually recognizing and appreciating my wins, right? So that was like a major takeaway for me, is to actually really take the time daily. That's something that I do every day now, is to write down at least 3 wins a day, right? So that was a big thing for me. I would even say doing that golden triangle and, talking to people in my personal circle, which is what I did first. And then later on in the program, I actually talked to, people, my management team, my direct manager and my manager above her, to get some feedback from them as well. Right. So that was really good. And then for me, what was the most groundbreaking was the joyful job and figuring out my joyful job. Right. Because I think it was last year, maybe the year before, I did start to just put myself out there more at the job, applying for different positions in instructional design and development, because that's where I thought I wanted to be. And we'll see, I'm still like figuring out this thing, right? But in doing that, I think I went on like 11. Did I go on 11 interviews? I went on a lot of interviews, that did not land anywhere. The last interview, I was told I was this close, but still not chosen. I did get a mentor out of that though, right? So I try to, again, look at the wins and all of the things, but, it gets defeating when you do that. But what I learned in Joyful Jobs is that I don't even know if instructional design and development is my thing. Or maybe it is, but not in the field that I was actually going after, right? So I learned that DE&I is where I want to be. And I thought that was so amazing because it was literally in front of my face the whole time, right? But I didn't make that connection because my podcast, like I interview women of color entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. I'm very much an advocate, in every space of wanting people to be treated fairly, right? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until we did a DE&I event at work, and I was just so annoyed because the people leading the event, like, you're not a person that can relate to feeling on the opposite end of DE&I. Why are you the leader of this event? Like, it really blew my mind, and part of that made me realize, like, this, Nicole, this is your thing. And then actually looking at the golden triangle, like, duh, this all makes sense, right? So pairing what I was super passionate about, in my leisure and my entrepreneurial journey with what I could actually do in corporate America, for whatever reason, that didn't come to my mind. And I think it was also because I was very much stuck in a mundane of, like, this is the lane that I have landed myself in. Let me just stay in this particular lane, right? So I will say, in addition to those particular things, another thing that the program has really done for me is, got me out of my comfort zone, and out of this one track thinking, of, okay, here I am, here is where I have to be, and realizing, that the world is my oyster, right? And I can decide, what I want to do. And it doesn't have to look like what I've been doing all of these years. Right? So I can reframe, redetermine, and I could actually do that as often, and as many times as I want to, right? So I think that that's truly amazing.
Come on, Nicole. And what was really cool is literally, I feel like I watched you become a butterfly, from caterpillar to butterfly in the program. And the kind of feedback, I believe you did, was it a leadership training or academy at your job where someone asked for your name to be put in a hat? Just things started happening at work. And instead of your career happening to you, things were not happening for you. You were very much so in the driver's seat, and you even saw an uptick in your entrepreneurial endeavors. So can you talk us through what kind of shift did you start to see in yourself? And then as a result in the workplace, and then as a result in your business? It's like everything was rising at the same time for you.
Right. Yeah. So, I'm going to just attribute that to just that mindset shift, right? Like that mindset shift, like when you believe that you're a winner, right? And it's like my brand is called Unheard United, right? So I labeled myself a winner years ago, right? But, anyone that does any work in mindset, they know that it's like this. It's up, down, and you got to continue to push yourself up and keep yourself up, right? And it's times when I'm great at it, and it's times when I'm not, right? So, this program actually helped me to continue to boost myself up more and more often, so that I'm higher, more constantly, right? And when I started to do that, I would say, the shift that I started to see in my job was amazing, because I kid you not, one time I was actually having a conversation with my manager, and she said something like, Nicole, I want you to be fulfilled. And my mind like exploded, like, lady, are you in my house? Do you know the program that I'm going to right now? Right. So, to be honest, I can't say whether or not this was happening prior to. Maybe it was happening prior to, and my mind wasn't there yet to kind of, embrace what was happening, but like once I entered into the program, like those synchronicities, like they were right in front of me, like my manager's actually also mirroring some of the things that I heard in the program, like, Nicole, network with people, schedule calls with them, actually learn more about them, right? So it was very much a reinforcement, of the concepts in the program from my manager, and I was just kind of like, what is going on here? Right. Like, it was like, is this really happening? Right. So that was one, me being more open to the opportunities that are in front of me. So you talked about that pre-leader academy, and really raising my hand and actually being okay with shifting, right? Because I actually was currently doing we call them a stint or a stretch assignment, right? So I was currently working with another department in instructional design and development and kind of learning that role, but I wasn't completely satisfied because they were giving me more project management stuff. And like I said, I had 18 years project management experience. So I wanted to do something that was outside of my wheelhouse, so to say. Even though I've done instructional design and development, I haven't done it in my company, so it was a different landscape to learn, right? And I wanted to do more of that design, and they were pushing me more to, what I've been doing for forever. So it wasn't stretching me the way I wanted to be stretched, right? So I remember at first I was a little nervous to kind of say, okay, I'm done with this. I want to move on to this, right? Like, I didn't want anyone to be mad at me, right? So actually realizing that, Nicole, this is your life, right? This is your life. This is your career. This is your fulfillment, your joyfulness, right? And it's okay if you want to say no to something and yes to something else. That was major. And then come to find out, like, I was in my own head because the guy wasn't even mad at me, right? Like, so, like letting myself be okay with those new decisions, and the changes that I decide to embark on, that was major as well. And then also, so that was like the different changes as far as in the career. And then also, like, as far as in my business, like, I remember actually, I took on several new clients, right? So took on several new clients. So like things are starting to just like morph in an amazing way, right? And it's not even like I was like advertising like, hey, come find me, right? Like one of my clients, we were on a call about something entirely different. The next thing you know, they reached out to me and they're like, hey, I want you to do this for me. And I'm like, okay, right? So got all of these new clients, which attributed to more clients than I've ever had, right? May ended up being the most revenue that I've ever made in my business in the month of May. And it's so funny because I think that first week, like the first week of May, started off with a bang. And I even did a post on social media. I said, May equals money, right? So this was before I even knew that May was going to be my highest revenue month, right? And that even happened, right? So then I'll just attribute that back to, that mindset, and really thinking the way you want things to be, and of course, taking the action, that you need to take to make that thing happen, right? But none of it felt forced. None of it felt forced, right? Which I think is truly amazing.
Yeah. Wow. I love, Nicole, when you said you weren't sure if some of these good things were happening for you in your career, but when your mindset is so set in one way, you will self-sabotage. You will block out the good. You will be unable to receive. So it's interesting that as soon as your mind opened up, same time, your manager is saying the same things about you and your career. So imagine if you had not gotten to this place where your mind was opened, where your mindset had shifted, you would still be unfulfilled. You would still be unhappy.
Right.
Can you talk to me about what were the components of the program that were a game changer for you, that were really helpful, whether it was how something was done, a part of something, a piece of the training, was just any part super memorable for you and impactful?
Yeah, so I am very much a template kind of person, very much a workbook person, right? Like give me the tools I need, let me work through that thing, right? So I really love, like the workbooks that are part of the program to allow me to dig in, to take time to do that deep thinking, and just get all of those things that, were there all along, right? But they're stuffed in my brain amongst every single other thing, right, that's in my brain, right? So to give me that space, in an organized, right, like it has to be organized for me, right, in an organized way to get all that stuff out so that I could see a clear picture like that. I loved it, and then all of the templates and the resources, right, like that I can, use during the program as well as after the program, right? Those tips as far as like your having informational interviews with people. What questions should you ask them, right? And I do interviewing all the time, but like I've realized about me, because my hand is in a lot of different pots, right? And I'm, doing a lot of things. I'm also a single mom, like a lot of things going on in my life. It's times when I don't want to have to think. Right.
Yes.
So, you give us the resources, or the program gives us the resources to not have to put that extra time into thinking, which can be another reason just for analysis paralysis, just for stagnation. Right. So those tools in themselves, like, were really game changers for me. Right. Because it gave me the format I needed to get the things out of my brain, and the resources that I need to take action,
Oh, I love that. And that's what we want to do, right? We want to make it as plug and play, as easy for you as possible. Right. And even with all the resources and all the coaching, I'm sure there were times that you were really challenged.
Oh, yeah.
Were there any obstacles or specific moments where you felt really challenged, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah. So I will say, was it the joyful job? It was the joyful job. Took me a very long time to get through, right? And I do think that part of it was because I was trying to stay in my lane, right? Like I was trying to stay in this lane that I had created for myself, and I wasn't allowing myself to let go of that, to like see what my lane is actually, like, no, this is the lane because this is what I've been doing. And this is what all of my, accolades and all of those things. Right. So until I just like really let go and allow that to happen, like I was stuck, I kept going back looking, and it just, didn't feel natural. I forget the exact moment, but it was literally like this kind of moment, when I'm like, oh, DE&I, it probably was that training. It probably was that training at the job, right? But it was a moment when, that shifted, right? And that shift was like a big burden, being lifted off of me, right? So, I will say, like, don't put yourself in a box, like I was putting myself in a box, right? And that box literally kept me confined and unable to complete, an assignment, right? That the answer was literally in front of my face, right? So I had to release that control, release thinking that I knew, what my thing was, and allow it to unfold to me, instead of me trying to fold it into what I thought it should be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nicole, who would you say you've become? Like when you think about the woman you walked into the program as and the woman you are now, who is this woman? How would you describe her?
Oh, that's a good question. Who is this woman? I would say she is definitely more open, than she was. And it's so funny because you couldn't tell me that, prior to the program, I wasn't open, right? So, more open, more aware, right? Aware of even, my blind spots, my wanting to control. You brought up something that I remember you calling me out about during the program, and I don't know if it was I may have knew it in the past, but I didn't give it as much credit, right? So I have definitely been guilty of self-sabotaging, right? So, like definitely going back to that more aware of who I am, more aware of my tendencies, right? And then accepting that thing, right? Because you have to accept it first to be able to let it go, right? So more accepting, and guess just really like arms wide open, right? Like arms wide open, and ready and willing to have what God wants me to have, and not putting limits. So limitless, I would say limitless, right? Yeah. And hopeful, very hopeful, right? Because, like you said, like I haven't changed careers or changed positions yet, right? And that is a part of my long-term plan, so hopeful about what the future has in store for me, when in the past it was more like a dread and and now it's, like it's going back to that acceptance. This is where I am right now, right? But that doesn't mean this is where I will be, for the rest of my life. And I do want to call out something else that was a major aha light bulb moment for me in the program. And that was the bridge careers or bridge jobs, right? Like, number one, I never, like heard that term like that and never even thought about that, right? But, having the option, right? Like options are super important to me. And I think I was very naive, or not even, just closed-minded to what options I had in front of me, right? So realizing that, like I could take a job that, is less stressful, or take a job, like let's say I get a position in instructional design and development, and it's not exactly where I want to be. It's still maybe a step toward, that would be considered my bridge job, and it's okay to do that and still work toward what that next thing will be, right? So, again, just going back to that open-mindedness, and just really realizing the possibilities that are out there and being excited about what could be and will be.
Come on. Wow. Nicole, my final question is, what would you say to a woman who is hesitant about investing the time and the resources into Fulfilled, who's wondering if this is a scam, or will this work for her, or is she worth this level of time investment, mindset investment, who's just doubting? What would you say to her?
Yeah, I would definitely say that if you are feeling stuck, if you are feeling undervalued, like there is more to life, then this definitely is a program that will change your life, right? And I will say that you get out of the program what you put into the program, right? So that's something very important to consider, right? And I will also say that, like for me, it's so funny. I think I mentioned this to you, EC, like I had a picture of what I wanted to get out of the program, right? Like, this is what I want the program to be and what have you, right? And what I got out was totally different, from what I thought it would be, right? So I would say, like, how do you say, allowing the program to do, what it needs to do for you, right? And you may not know what it needs to do for you, right? Because if you knew, you would already be there, right? So, allow yourself to develop as you're supposed to develop, as God wants to develop you, right? So, if you thinking about it, like if it wasn't a program for you, I feel like you probably wouldn't be thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about it, do what you gotta do, right?
Nicole, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I loved when you shared, even though this is not a business program, because you became the woman, you had your highest revenue month ever. And you're just going to continue to grow and scale and grow and scale to the point that you wanted to grow and scale while you still have your corporate job. So you have both your revenues flowing and you have the best of both worlds. And if ever you wanted to stop working your corporate job and you wanted to do that for a while, full time, you could. And if you wanted to dial that down and dial your corporate stuff up, you could. You have options and you have the skill to continue to flow in those options. And I think that's probably one of the greatest gifts.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, excited for you. Thank you so much, Nicole, for joining us. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Welcome.